Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, good weekend. Whenever you're listening to us, welcome to another episode of Midnight's Edge After Dark, the weekend edition. We are recording this on January 20th, 2018. I am, of course, your narrator supreme, Mr. Rob Robot Shlomo, coming to you from Shabby Road Studios, and with us, as always, is Mr. Tom Connors.
How are we doing today?
Oh, fantastic. I almost sound like an auctioneer right there. Hey, Tom Connors.
Give me a good weekend. Have you had a good weekend? Have you had a good
weekend once, good weekend sold. Alrighty. Anyway, so we gotta have a kind of a lean show for you. We decided we're gonna. There's really not a whole lot going on during the weekend. Everybody's off having fun, isn't that right, Tom? Except us. We're burning the midnight oil. Yeah. So we decided we're gonna open up the floor to our Facebook members, and we're gonna field some questions. Isn't that right?
Sure are. We got a few from our members, so if you want to join us on Facebook over there, I'll have the link down below. Go ahead and check that out. Let's get into our questions for today. Andrew Miller of the group asks, what canceled movie would you guys like to have seen? This is something I think we may have been asked before, but regardless, I'd love to see like The Death of Superman, but I know they've talked about doing like an animated movie of that. There's plenty I've wanted to see. I remember I've never really heard too many people talk about it, but there was a version of Ghostbusters 3 that was supposed to be back in the 90s that like Chris Farley and a few of these others were going to be involved with, that just never came to fruition due to the untimely death of Chris Farley, and then things kept evolving into what we finally got. But anyway, we won't get into all that. Rob, any movies you would like to see that never came to fruition?
A sequel to, like I said, sequel to the Sahara, the Clive Cussler movie. I always want to see that. Going back years ago, there was supposed to be a sequel to Animal House, where they were all graduated and they were living in Haight-Ashbury during during the Summer of Love.
There was that short-lived TV show too, though. Oh,
Delta House. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but sadly, John Belushi died, so they couldn't make the movie without him. That always piqued my curiosity. So,
well, here's another one I know we may have been asked before several times, but let's answer it just the same. Daniel Garrett Irwin asks, do you ever think there will be a good video game adaptation? Rob?
Maybe. I mean, that's a hard question to answer, because video games rely so much on the player to drive the narrative.
Right.
That it's hard to adapt that into a movie context. I mean, you can't very well just have player one over Lara Croft's head,
Well, we've come close in a few instances with, like, say, Crank, or what was that movie that was from first-person view last year?
Hardcore Henry.
Yeah, there's that one that people have said is a lot like a video game. But that's the problem you run into inherently, like you said, is if I'm going to play a video game or watch somebody play a video game or watch a movie that's like a video game, I'd rather just play a video game. I mean,
yeah. There probably will be at some point. However, so far we haven't seen it yet.
As cheesy as it is, the best we've gotten so far is probably something like Mortal Kombat.
How about the Legend of Zelda? You do a Legend of Zelda
I'm
movie.
Surprised. Yeah.
Like, do a Pixar style animated movie. I mean, that's just begging to be made.
There's word that Nintendo's working on a Mario movie, so maybe that's next in line. Who knows? Let's move on to the next question. Why not? Mike Matisu asks, will we ever get to see a decent He-Man on the big screen? Lord knows.
Yeah, well, my answer is, with David Goyer at the helm, no. Anybody else? Maybe. Keiji Muramoto. Given Hollywood's recent trend of retconning movie franchises like Terminator, X-Men, Halloween, at what point will audiences get tired of said franchises and stop paying to see new installments? Also, is there a solution to the issue? That's actually a pretty good question. Well, I mean, in the case of Terminator, they've already stopped going to see it, didn't they?
Yeah, the last two movies didn't do too well, but this next one has a lot of connections to the original series, or original two films anyway, with James Cameron and so on. So we'll see how this new one goes. It has a possibility of being reinvigorated, but to kind of get back to the question, though, Halloween's already been done twice, and this will technically be a third time. You have shit like Spider-Man that's been done a few times.
Yeah, the solution is to focus on story. That's always the solution. Make a better end product.
Well, and stay true to the characters. Yeah, I mean, Hollywood's shown that if they do things right with things like Bond and stuff like that, that these kind of movies can be evergreen and continue. These kind of stories can continue on for years and years and years and years, as long as there's an audience there to see them, you know? Not a lot of movies are going to live through a reboot. Plain and simple. We learned from Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man reboot, that just wasn't going to fly with the fans, you know?
No.
So it's just hard to say. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, I believe. So, next question.
From Terry Light. Hey, Terry. Why do you think studios still announce movie details for films 2 years in advance when by the time the movie is actually made or sometimes canceled, all they have done is made fan bases mad by not pulling through with what they kept promising? See The Crow, Gambit, etc.
Well, this kind of goes with the last one in a little bit of a way.
Think about it. I mean, it used to be... Okay, I'm going to go way back to a mystical time called the 70s. We used to get all our information from fanzines, like the Fangoria. There used to be like several sci-fi magazines, Rolling Stone to a point. Yeah, and they used to come out. Rolling Stone used to come out every 2 weeks. Fangoria about once a month. There used to be quarterly magazines.
If you wanted entertainment news, though, you did have to look around. You had to look for People. You had Playboy. You had Rolling Stone. Entertainment Weekly finally came in. You know, stuff like that.
Maybe there was an interview with Steven Spielberg or George Lucas talking about their next film, but it was, you had to dig pretty deep. Now with the internet, it's everywhere. And so, and you have everybody, like even us, we're just scouring the news every day, hourly, looking for the latest morsel. Really, it's demand. It's to fill that hype cycle. The hype cycle is gone from really maybe a few months to years now. Moving on to the next question. Alan Whalen wants to know, are we likely to see a Solo trailer anytime soon? And why can't we get a decent horror movie anymore? I'm still thinking that we're going to see a Solo trailer during the Super Bowl. I really do.
At this point, that's all that's left.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, if you're gonna try to generate any buzz around this movie, then you've got to do it with the biggest television audience possible, with the most amount of eyeballs in front of the screen, and that is actually the first commercial break during the Super Bowl.
And then again, there's still a chance the movie could be pushed back. There's still that possibility. There's no real sign of that happening at this time. The only things that kind of make us wonder about it is the moves that Fox are making with their films, but they may not even be related. We've covered that before, and there is a editorial that'll be out here shortly, either before or around the same time as this. That'll kind of cover that mess. As far as decent horror movies, it was okay, but we've got this situation now, and I think the biggest problem with horror movies, and if you disagree with me or have another opinion, go ahead and let us know down below in the comments, but you don't have the awe factor when it comes to seeing horror movies back in, say, like the 80s or the 70s, to where you sit there and wonder how they did that, and the tension was there that just isn't there now, that they use jump scares too much for, and computer effects now that they used to use practical effects for. And you can tell they're done with a computer, and it just, to me, they feel empty, and it just doesn't have the same punch that the old effects used to have. And a good example is to watch any of the old Friday the 13th movies and then watch the remake. And when 80% of the gore effects are done with a computer, it's just not the same. So that's kind of part of the problem. And then the other problem is there's been this shift in Hollywood to the haunting kind of horror movies are popular now, between, like The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity. That kind of thing is kind of taken over because those movies are extremely cheap to produce and they make a shitload of money. I did a video a while back. It's still actually maybe up here if you want to check it out, but at that time it was the most profitable movies up to that point as far as the difference between what they cost to make and what they made in the theaters. And most of them were horror movies. Like I said, like The Conjuring, The Paranormal, that kind of stuff. Paranormal Activity, I mean. That kind of stuff was the higher grossing film. So that's kind of where Hollywood's going with that. So if this new Halloween movie does well, if some of these other different kind of horror movies start to do well, because it was a little bit different, we might see a little bit more of a different trend in horror, but for now, that's kind of where it's going. And I know Rob's not a horror fan, so he doesn't have much to say about that. So
no, I don't. Moving on, Dominic Perry doesn't have a question, but he wanted to wish me a happy belated birthday. Thank you, Dominic.
Yay. Brendan Clement does, though. Which Marvel character are you most excited to see on the big screen once the Fox-Disney merger is completed? Rob?
Silver Surfer.
Yeah, you've answered that before. I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with X-Men. Not so much the Fantastic Four, but it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do with them too, and just all of them in general. I'm just excited to have more of the Marvel characters back with the other characters where they belong, and now all that's left is what Sony has, and who knows what's going to happen there. So yeah. Anything else you have to add to that?
That's about it.
Tyler Bioshock Rod, who is also one of our mods on the group, asks, "Is there any way to save Solo, or is it too far gone?"
That's
well,
we really don't know if it could surprise us, but I think just the PR battle has been lost with this film. And with The Last Jedi souring a lot of people on Star Wars now, I think it's going to be difficult for it to salvage any kind of positive goodwill towards this movie.
Yeah, I think it's going to have one of the lower openings of the Star Wars films thus far for a couple reasons. And the main one being, besides the fact that it's just Han Solo and nobody asked for a Han Solo movie, and this movie has reeked of issues since it began, it's up against a lot more competition than Star Wars is used to. And just look at what Jumanji did to The Last Jedi and giving it a run for its money here. So you're looking at a situation where there's all kinds of Jumanjis opening up around, you know what I mean?
Jumanji! Just had to get that on.
Either Disney's going to move this or they're going to bury it. That's all there is to it. In the end, if it makes more than $500 million, they can't really consider it much of a loss, I'm sure, even though the movie probably cost a little bit more. I think that the stench going into it, I think Disney's really aware of what's, that they kind of have a situation here that might not turn out too well for them.
Yeah, one of the other big problems is that, a new movie every year, Star Wars doesn't feel special anymore. It really doesn't. James McKenzie asks, Crocodile Dundee sequel, what's with that? I think that's odd, and I'm Australian. Wasn't Mick Dundee's son a blonde kid, not the guy who leads Channing Tatum around in a gimp suit? You went there, didn't you?
Have you seen that?
No,
film?
I have not, and now after that description, I don't think I want to.
It's actually not too bad, but I seen this story yesterday, and I'm just like, this series peaked with Crocodile Dundee 2.
It peaked.
Crocodile Dundee 3 was a mess.
It peaked with the first one.
No, the second one wasn't too bad. Why in the world would you have Danny McBride in this as Crocodile Dundee's son? Because
because Paul Hogan's too old. That's why.
Well, he's probably going to be in it too as Grandpa Crocodile Dundee, but as James McKenzie had pointed out, he doesn't even look anything like the kid who I think was his real-life kid. So unless they're not having any involvement with Paul Hogan, then in which case nobody's going to want to see it. And I said in the comments of the post that somebody had made about the story, I said the more logical solution would have had, they've been living in L.A. all these years, and in the meantime they had a daughter, and now that daughter has to learn how to live in the outback because they've decided they're going to move back to Australia. That'd be funnier than what they've got going on here. And a few people even mentioned a few possible casting choices at that point, even Rebel Wilson.
Oh boy.
This looks like something Larry the Cable Guy would have been in straight to video. I don't get Danny McBride's connection here. He's generally smarter than
Get her
this.
done.
I really don't get it. Yeah, see, that seems like more like something,
Nah.
But anyway, next question.
Well, Sam Moreno. Looks like this is the last question here.
It is.
Sam Moreno, how do you feel about the recent news that original RoboCop writer and creator Ed Neumeyer is now working on a new RoboCop film being a sequel to the first film? This is actually the first time I'm hearing of it, and sounds like it would be pretty cool.
I just seen this story just before we started recording, and I got a little excited because I was like, ooh, hopefully they are taking it back to the old school RoboCop, you know, and that'd be really neat to see. RoboCop fits right in with the comic book culture we have right now, and I thought they didn't do a horrible job with the remake, but I just didn't think they captured what RoboCop really was all about, and the tongue-in-cheek and the humor.
Yeah. I remember when my brother saw the first RoboCop, he had no idea what was going on. When he saw the dinosaur, the commercial, he's like, "What?" He's like, "What's going on? There's a dinosaur." And I'm like, "Cause it's a commercial." Like you know, it was. He didn't really get that it was supposed to be like a commentary on consumerism and you know, and a satire, and you know, and about corporate culture seeping into every aspect of our lives, you know.
Kind of foreshadowing a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. The ills of privatization and stuff like that. But anyway,
the first RoboCop though is just a classic. One of my favorites, all-time favorites. The first film, especially. If you haven't seen it, check it out, guys. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I kind of doubt anyone listening to this hasn't seen RoboCop. So I mean.
Right, I mean, that's kind of why I'm just like, yeah, if you haven't, you should.
Yeah. So anyway, so this looks like that's it for the questions. Yeah. Just a reminder, actually, we will have another Trek log coming at some point. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we're working on it. We've got a lot of stuff coming up for you guys, and you'll start to see that, like I said, before and after this video comes out too. So you'll see the fruits of the labor that we're putting out there. But we're going to have a Trek log real soon. So stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of great stuff coming up.
Yeah, and I keep saying if we don't have a Trek log for this past episode, we will double up and we'll do 2 for the next one. You know, we got all kinds of neat stuff coming. Is there anything else?
Part of it is we kind of are waiting for a special guest to catch up with the show, but we don't want to get into too much more of that either.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
Some of you have been asking about what's going on with YouTube and how that's going to affect everything, and we'll have a lot more about that soon, but the best thing you can do for us right now is to head over to Patreon. Isn't that right?
Yes,
Rob?
Patreon. If you support the show through Patreon, you can, first of all, you can support the show by subscribing and sharing this with as many people as possible and clicking the bell icon. Yeah. That way you'll be notified of all the latest content. But you can also support the show through Patreon if you really like what we do. We have different multiple tiers for Patreon supporters.
And we got a lot of new surprises we're going to be working on over there as well.
Exactly. Patreon supporters will get various bonuses. You'll get early access to mini documentaries. You'll get uncut audio from mini documentaries. You'll get lost episodes, bloopers, outtakes. You'll get the behind the edge making of videos, which tell the story of how Midnight's Edge came to be. Isn't that right, Tom?
That is correct.
And if you donate a boatload of money to us, and Tom may deliver a pizza to your house. No,
I may.
Yeah, you know,
depends on where you live and what kind of pizza.
And don't forget to tip well, because like I said, because YouTube is being a bunch of bastards right now. But anyway, and as I always say, if you don't have the means to support the show through Patreon, then please click subscribe, share this with as many people as possible, because we cannot do this without you.
Share it with your grandma, your aunt, your enemies, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, their pets.
Share it with them. You know, you just load it up on your iPad, just play it for your dog. That's all. It doesn't matter. As long as they're watching.
Hey, he might learn something.
Yeah. So anyway, one more time, I am Mr. Rob Robot Shlomo.
And I am Tom Connors.
And thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time.